FinOps need to shift from just looking where I can save money to not giving engineers to spend more than they should.
This is DevOps Paradox, episode number 236, Efficient Cloud Cost Optimizations with Profisea Labs. Welcome to DevOps Paradox. This is a podcast about random stuff in which we, Darren and Victor, pretend we know what we're talking about. Most of the time, we mask our ignorance by putting the word DevOps everywhere we can and mix it with random buzzwords like Kubernetes, serverless, CI/CD, team productivity, islands of happiness, and other fancy expressions that make us sound like we know what we're doing. Occasionally, we invite guests who do know something, but we do not do that often since they might make us look incompetent. The truth is out there, and there is no way we are going to find it. P.S. It's Darren reading this text and feeling embarrassed that Victor made me do it. Here are your hosts, Darren Pope and Victor Farsick. Victor, you are rolling in the money, right? You're just setting it on fire and you have those dollar bill machine guns.
Of course I do. That's how I roll. I don't know how to spend it. I'm being overpaid.
So you had an agent that got you a really good deal and you're just rolling in the money.
Exactly. When you have more money than you can spend and more money than you need, the only thing left is to waste it.
Can I go ahead and just send you my cloud bills? You can just start paying those for me then if you're rolling in the money.
Yeah, no, I mean, we should send that to our guest because he's in money business.
On today's show, we have Anton Grishko on from Profisea Labs. He's the chief architect. Anton, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me here.
Now, Profisea Labs is a FinOps solution. And usually when you hear FinOps, people throw FinOps at their 10,000 line, 65,000 line spreadsheets, and it's like, save me money. And they're working in a very reactive way. But that seems silly. It seems like we should stop spending the money before we actually start spending it.
Yep.
That seems backwards, doesn't it? But what do you think about that? I mean, like the Victor thing, Victor should be paying my cloud bills all the time. That's his job. But that's not how it works in real life.
So I'm coming from DevOps background, and I've been DevOps for the last 12, 14 years, something like that. And I was mainly doing migration project between different clouds and from on-premise to clouds. And this like pain of saving money on the cloud is real pain for me, because once you do the migration, the first step that customer is asking is that why I'm paying that huge bill onto AWS or Google or Azure or whatever. Like why I'm paying that huge amount of money? Can you squeeze it? Can you optimize it? Can you do something with that? So this is from the background that I'm coming from. And we, DevOps engineers, how we were doing that previously, and you're absolutely right, we were writing our own scripts, we're using Excel spreadsheet, we're using the billing, which is embedded in different clouds, and plus 5-7 different tools. Then you need to analyze all of that, and then you can give some kind of recommendations where you can cut the cost on a cloud. That's like a story couple years ago, how DevOps engineers were dealing with their cost optimizations. And you see, there is a big problem with that. First of all, is that you're already losing money, and only after that you're starting to save money. So you need to lose money, and only after that you'll start doing something. And I see that across many, many different companies, large companies, small companies, they all dealing with that in that way. So first of all, that someone did something stupid, they spend a lot of money on cloud, and only after that they're starting to do something with cost optimization. And I think that it's incorrect completely. We need to change it. And FinOps shouldn't be reactive like process or reactive guy. As far as I see right now, companies are building or FinOps teams, or they're just building FinOps process within the company where developers and DevOps engineers are responsible for that. But anyway, all of that is reactive. It means that they first of all spend money, and only after that they reviewed reports, they get notification, alerts, anomaly detection, or something like that. And only after that they start doing something. And I'm saying that we need to work in proactive mode. We need to set governance. FinOps need to shift from just looking where I can save money to not giving engineers to spend more than they should. So we need to build a governance within the companies, And there are a lot of different tools already available on the market, by the way, which are helping to do that. If you're using Terraform, so for example, you can use InfraCost that will give you some information about how much you're spending per each commit to the Terraform repo. This is the first step. We need to make it larger. We need to create policies within the company. Those policies need to be on top of Terraform. Those policies need to be on top of our Kubernetes cluster, and so on, so on, so on.
I feel that one of the big problems in that area is not necessarily that people want to waste money or any of those things, but the lack of knowledge or understanding of the necessities of what they're doing. The high school example would be, hey, I need to run this application. How much memory and CPU I need? I don't know. Hence, let's put 10 gigabytes just in case, right? Because if you don't know, you want to go for the safe option, right? You're never going to go for unsafe option if you have no idea what to do, right?
Yeah, that's true. And I see that customers are really, like, they're making wrong decisions. Like, let's do multi-regional, multi-zonal setup. And then at the end of the month, oh, why we're paying so much for traffic? Like, it's crazy. That's the reality. And by the way, that's the reason why FinOps process is really important. We need some process or person within the company who will be observing all of that. Will be like a sheriff in a town.
Well, basically what you're saying is everybody needs to live in a budget.
Everyone, yeah, exactly. First of all, think about that. Like, people on a personal level, they're already doing that. They're already planning like how much you will spend for utilities, how much you will pay for your gas, electricity, and so on, so on. So you know exactly how much you will spend this month and next month and so on. So people doing that on a personal level, but for some reason, people are not doing that on a company level. So once they're inside the company, they're not thinking about that, hey, if I will not shut down this database, company will lose $1,000. They're not thinking about that. They just, okay, I just create a database, I go home, it's okay. And we need to change that. We need to change this.
But if I use the same analogy personal, like bills, right? I know perfectly well how to shut down the lights before I go to bed, right? Do people know how to do equivalent of that in cloud or somewhere? I mean, I know that everybody knows how to shut down the database, but how to shut it down safely and then in a way that it will wake up when needed and things like that.
With a proper order and so on. Yeah, it's a big struggle. Again, I'm coming from DevOps background, and as a DevOps engineer, we were doing all of that by ourselves, meaning that you're building a Lambda function or Jenkins job, you're building something that will basically wake up your instances, databases, clusters, and so on, and then will shut it down. And of course, you will need to add order of startup, order of shutdown. There should be, like, for example, on AWS, inside the RDS database, if you will shut it down, AWS will start it up in 7 days automatically because they're doing patching. So you need to think about that. You need to write a logic that will be checking that and will shut down after that patching, and so on, so on. So it's quite hard. Company need to basically put their money on the table. They need to give that to DevOps team the job to basically build that kind of automation. And it's like a simple thing. We just want to shut down our resources and start up them per schedule in a smart way. And this is what clouds are missing, and you need to build it on yourself. Again, right now, a lot of different tools that helps you to do that. And I encourage people to do that. Don't invent bicycle from scratch. Just use what's already available.
You mentioned the budgets. I'm assuming that you're talking about budgets per teams and things like that. Kind of every team should have their own budget so that they know what are their limits instead of going crazy. But how do you establish that budget? How do I, as owner of the company, how do I know that your team should have this and Dari's team should have that, right?
It's a good question, and at the same time, it's very complicated. So there are two angles of this question. So first of all, how to find out what the budget we should set right now to specific team or specific environment or specific business unit or something like that, or project. The only way is to do it on a historical basis right now at the moment. So you check in on a historical basis, or you add in some kind of AI capabilities that will be doing that instead of you, which will be predicting how much you will spend and will be setting this like a budget level. But there is another angle of this problem. It's even more deeper, like how to split shared resources between those teams. I can put a budget to a specific team, but this team is sharing, for example, database with another team. What should I do in that case? How I will split the cost from database to those two different teams? Should I split it in fair mode, like just like half and half? They're paying half of the database price and another team is paying half of another price? Or I need to split it based on a request, based on the amount of connections or something like that. So those questions which you will get once you will start dealing with the budgets, setting on a team level or project level or business unit. You anyway will have something which will be shared between different teams and projects, and you'll need to decide how to split that cost. So it sounds easy initially, like set the budgets on the teams, but in reality it's not that easy.
Well, going back to our personal comparison between personal and business, your budgets are probably based on your paycheck.
Yep.
And your paycheck comes in every week, every 2 weeks, every month, whatever it is. You come up with some sort of budget based on that. Companies are a lot different. Usually there's annual budgeting cycles deciding where money is going to be spent. And I think both are sort of incorrect. I mean, the upside of the personal is you're closer to the real money.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the company money is more of monopoly money until you get to the end of the year and you figure out if you made money or didn't. So should we consider from a company perspective changing our budget cycles? Keep the annual, right? It's good. But instead of keeping it annual, keep it a rolling annual. In other words, move to every 3 months you set an annual budget because now your granularity has changed. And you can keep better track, because it seems like to me, especially from pulling tools in, I would be able to not have that $10 million, $50 million loss at the end of the year because I didn't budget correctly, because my interns decided to spin up something fun in the summer and forgot to shut it off.
To me, that sounds very dangerous, because if I look at it through the budget of my company, right, I can be in a situation that actually company is earning good money, and then I'm still wasting more because I can, right? What if my budget allows me $1 million? That does not mean that I cannot run with 100,000, right?
Or you should spend $1 million.
Exactly. Kind of, hey, we are not earning money because I cannot build whatever I'm supposed to be building, right? I don't have enough money, so my users actually are experiencing latency. Kind of, that sounds, I don't know, not necessarily ideal.
It's a good point. So it shouldn't go from the budget. It's more complicated. So there is two different layers that I think of. First of all is architectural layer. You need to build a good architecture, you need to choose a good services that you will use for your infrastructure, and it should be cost efficient. I mean, you shouldn't be making mistakes that other companies are doing when they're building their infrastructure. It should be right away cost efficient, and companies right away should be thinking about that. That's first part. But there is a second part. Companies still want to budget their expenses by end of the year, like on an annual basis. They still want to do that. They still want to plan the next year. I will give an example. I was working many years ago. I was working as a DevOps engineer inside the Deutsche Bank for American branch. And why I'm just telling this story, because inside Deutsche Bank, they did very clever budgeting system. They're budgeting each and every team. Each and every team has like a virtual amount of money. It's not real money. It's like a just virtual amount of money, some kind of value. And that's it. And they can spend only till that threshold. If they need to spend more, nothing holds them to spend more, but they just need to get the approval from their manager, and they need to give reasoning. So teams, when, for example, they're building some application, if someone told them that, hey guys, you have only $10,000 to run this application. So the dev team will start thinking that, okay, what can we do in order to fit our application to be within those boundaries of the budget? Maybe we need to switch to more modern framework. Maybe we need to split our microservices to more bigger services instead of having large amount of them, or something like that.
What you just said is very interesting, because I have a feeling that whenever I hear somebody speaking about FinOps, everybody is always focused on cloud. How can we reduce the amount of money we pay for the network traffic and things like that? I rarely hear, at least from FinOps vendors, hey, actually, maybe that's not your problem. Maybe your problem is just that you have a WebLogic application that acts as a black hole.
Total amount of memory.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, how often do companies, I guess that they go to cloud from on-prem, they get faced with a bill, they get surprised, they go crazy. But how often do they say, maybe actually we were doing it wrong in the first place independently of the cloud?
Not often. That's true. I have a lot of demos with clients like right now, each day, and I'm talking with different companies, and I see how they're dealing with the FinOps. And you're absolutely right. Not many companies even thinking about doing some kind of re-architecture or re-platforming in order to save money. Like in your case, like WebLogic is very old technology. It consumes a lot of memory, and there are a lot of different alternatives that can do that much more efficiently and with small footprint on the CPU and memory, and it can save a lot of money. The good example you already know about that is story about Amazon Prime and how they switch from microservices to more bigger services. It's still, by the way, it's still microservices architecture. I would say it's fat services or something like that. Yeah, but they switched it and they saved 90% of the cost on the infrastructure. It's a good example that changing architecture of your application from dev side may affect your cost on the cloud.
On one hand, people do silly things. They just do like regional cluster when you don't need it, right? And things like that. But I have correct me if I'm wrong, I have impression that in significant percentage of cases, you cannot do certain cost optimizations in cloud because of the way how your application is architectured.
Yes,
right?
yes.
It cannot scale horizontally, right? So kind of, we need to run this monster, right? Or whatever that is, because those two things to me sound somehow very related. One doesn't go without the other very often.
Exactly. Yes. We need, there are like 12 factor up framework, like that you need to build your applications already ready for cloud, and you need to embed your applications properly into cloud. And companies are not doing that. Not all of them, I mean. There are still a lot of legacy projects within the companies which cost companies a lot of money. I still see companies with the Oracle database and the business logic inside the database, and they're struggling with that database, and they want to move to cloud. And I'm just saying that, hey guys, do you imagine what's going to be a cost in the cloud? You're currently on hardware running your Oracle database, and I guess if you move it to database, it will be much more costly than you have right now. Maybe you need to change it. Maybe you need to check out new frameworks, check out new databases. Each day we have a new, really good projects that can be used. This market is not standing, it's evolving.
But I'm guessing that also, if there is anything that can, and this is me air quoting, force companies to rethink what they're doing, that would be FinOps, right? Because typically, if you have WebLogic application, I'm going to use that as example, right? Nobody wants to change it because it's been working like that for 20 years and, that's life and all those things until somebody puts a bill to it, right? Put a dollar sign.
Yep.
Because then it's not about engineers wanting to do something fancy, go for the hype.
Mm-hmm.
But it's about real dollars.
It's about saving money. Exactly. So as you see, FinOps is becoming more and more, not just like looking inside the reports and then the billing reports and just doing notifications and looking where you can like delete some unused volumes or something like that. FinOps is becoming more and more like advisory or something like that. Governance, as I said. So as a FinOps, you can check, like, we have WebLogic application, let's maybe change it. And then you can calculate how much you can potentially save if we will redo that. And so on and so on. So FinOps is not only about going to reports, take a look on how much you spent, and then figuring out in Excel spreadsheet what you can delete or remove. It's more wide process, I would say.
I'm going to fantasize right now, but is there a tool or something that would tell me something like, I don't care about the language you use for your application. I don't care about architecture of your application. I don't care about whether you run in AWS or Google. I don't care any of those things. But according to the number of requests coming in and out, the amount of data that you're dealing with, and things like that, some more neutral parameters, this should cost this much.
Interesting.
If you understand what I mean.
Yes.
Can you somehow get objective data and say, based on traffic, based on this or that, you should be paying $1,000.
And you're paying, like, for example, $2,000. So you're definitely doing something wrong.
$2,000. Or maybe you're paying $500 because you're the best in the world. I don't know. But
yeah, like something like a blueprint, to take a look on a blueprint architecture and how much this architecture cost.
Based on, not even architecture, but based on what the application or system is doing, right? Based on industry standards, if you would be Amazon Prime, you should be paying this and not that, right?
Right now, I don't know like one tool that can do that. I know only combination of different tools, and plus, again, doing it semi-manual on yourself. By the way, maybe you know such tool. Maybe you can advise.
No, I don't. I'm just wishful. It's just wishful thinking of my part. But it sounds like something that would be interesting, especially you mentioned AI before and things like that.
Yes.
If we could somehow get, because everything we spoke is very subjective, right? You get this amount of budget because you're a money-making team, and you get this amount of budget because you're not making money, or, because you requested this much. It's all very subjective in a way, right?
I heard a lot of different CTOs. They need to have like a calculator where they can just put an architecture and it will give you how much that architecture costs in a different cloud. This is what they are looking. And the CTO said to me, like, there were a couple of CTOs who said about the same idea. They're saying that, for example, he has a dev team, and dev team has a new idea or new product or a new feature, but that feature requires new architecture from infrastructure layer. And he would like those guys to draw a diagram and then to upload somewhere to some smart AI calculator that will give them how much it will cost if they will go with that architecture on the cloud. Right now, there is no such tool. And I'm working at Profisea Labs, and we're trying to build such tool. We'll see if we will be able to manage to do that. But that's the idea. So it's almost what you said, but from a different angle. They're not looking to stack their current infrastructure with like a blueprint. They're just mostly like, what's going to be the effect of this diagram, of this architecture on top of my cloud? Or maybe you can compare other clouds and you can tell me what's going to be the price there. Talking about AI, we live in AI age, and AI is already shaping FinOps. AI shaping FinOps from Kubernetes side. Like, there are already a lot of projects which are managing Kubernetes, doing properly scaling up, scaling down, consolidating pods and changing spots and on-demands, and do that in intelligent way. There are projects which are even predicting your usage a little bit ahead of time, so that your cluster will order nodes a little bit ahead of time, like a few minutes or 5 minutes before. And then it will, based on the prediction, it will go down. And same goes to not only to Kubernetes. There are a lot of projects which already reading the data from different clouds, analyzing the data, giving you predictions, looking for some anomaly things that happens on your account. I believe that this AI thing about FinOps, it will be just growing and growing and growing. It's currently a hot topic. Companies are trying to squeeze money on their cloud as much as possible. We're in a recession probably. So companies are really trying to cut the cost on the cloud, and it's really important for them. And I believe that AI is here to help.
Is it really AI, or is it just really good machine learning? Because I've had AI try to do math, and it's never been very good.
You're right. It's not like the like AI, the normal AI. It's more mathematical models, mathematical libraries and frameworks. This is mostly what's used for like FinOps part, even for Kubernetes and clouds. So it's not like actual AI that you train, you have pre-trained model and then you're using it. Like, for example, There is a model called Profit from Facebook. Facebook open sourced it a couple years ago. And open source community take this framework called Profit, and they created Neural Profit, which is more advanced version of this model. And that model is used for forecasting. A lot of companies using this Neural Profit for forecasting. Is it like actual AI? No, it's mathematical model. It's not like AI. But it's helpful. It's very helpful. Yes, it's doing the correct or almost correct predictions. You cannot do the correct prediction. It's impossible. But you can be very close to the reality.
All we're trying to do is get to efficiency in all of these things. Your CTO calculator model is efficiency. The problem with that is the architects sit down, they design out their new system, they throw it up against the calculator spits out a number, call it 100,000 a year to operate, and the CTO says, well, no, we need to run it for 25,000, so go back and re-architect. The backside of that calculator that I don't think it can actually predict is this application actually going to be used or not? We could spend millions and millions and millions of dollars developing an application, launch it to the public, and nobody uses it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not, the CTO probably isn't factoring that part in.
No, it's not a CTO problem. It's like overall problem of going with your product to the market and then figuring out how people are using it. So it's a very good point. You give a very valid point. The company can, for example, start a project. They can go through calculator, AWS, GCP calculator, doesn't matter. So they calculated something. It's not going to be accurate. It's going to be like finger in the air. It's going to be very approximate, that calculation. I never saw that people who did the calculation how much they will spend on the cloud, and then they switch to the cloud and they're spending exactly the same money. I never saw that situation. And you gave a very good point, is that company can build some product. They can build that product based on some architecture. They already figured out the total cost of ownership on the cloud. And then they're going to market and they're figuring out that no one is using that. So they need to descale really quickly. They need to re-architect one more time, and probably that architecture will happen during the year. Because, for example, company could say that, hey, we build a product, no one is using that, we're losing money, let's make it smaller, let's drastically cut the cost on the infrastructure, and then let's try like another strategy to go to the market. I saw such cases, and it's hard for dev team. That's true.
That's kind of strange. I thought that if you build something with high hopes and that something ends up not being very used, shouldn't not very used something not cost much at the same time?
Good. It's a good point. It's a good point, but it's not working like that. Again, because people are doing what you said. So, for example, people running the application in production, and they don't know how much of the memory and CPU they should allocate for the first time. So they're just giving a lot of extra resources. And it just running there, and it's waiting that a lot of customers will come. And those a lot of customers, they never come, for example. They never joined this product, never started to use it. And what we have some servers or some nodes inside our Kubernetes, which is consuming some CPU and memory, running and just waiting for customers to join. I saw such cases as well. So, which means that there was a mistake made from the infrastructure side, initially, from architecture side. When everything is done correctly, it should descale, it should scale down automatically. Of course, you need to review like your CPU and memory usage constantly, better to enable some kind of automation. Again, there are a lot of projects that already connecting AI to changing the limits and requests, for example, inside the Kubernetes, and so on and so on. So this is what companies should do. And then in that case, they can scale down really easily. But reality is different, because when companies are starting the projects, they're not thinking about that, hey, let's build a very perfect infrastructure that we can scale up and scale down easily. Usually business is coming to developers and DevOps and saying that we don't have time, you have 1 month, we need to release, otherwise investors will not give us another round of money and we will lose company. And team is just doing it as is. There is no like planning, no strategy, nothing. Just did it And then after that, they're starting to optimize it.
The one item you left out of that is the developers actually just want this item on their CV so they can go get another job because this company is going under. Did I say that out loud?
Yep. But that's true. That's true.
So you recently had a blog post come out on the Profisea Labs site, and I'll make sure to link that down in the description, of the 5 effective FinOps methods for optimizing your cloud costs. And number 2 was the one I thought that was the most interesting. It's eliminating obsolete data. Most people probably don't know what obsolete data is in their environment. You might be able to guess some, but how can you safely eliminate obsolete data? I mean, RM-RF star seems to work pretty good for me.
Yeah, but it's a bad way. It's a bad way. So first of all, if we're talking about a small company, it's really easy to find inside a small company who owns resources, and you can actually figure out, can you delete that portion of data or some maybe log group, or maybe you can some volume with data, or maybe some database. Doesn't matter. So I'm just trying to say that for small companies, when they have a very good technical team and that team is not huge, they don't have such problem with like, probably they do, but usually it's fixed really easily between the engineers. They can figure out who created that and can they delete that or not. While in large companies, that's a totally different story. Someone created something, then, for example, some database, or maybe they're creating some kind of backups or snapshots, or they have some kind of logs, and they see it's consuming a lot of money, consuming a lot of space, consuming a lot of money, and they would like to delete it. But you as FinOps engineer, or as DevOps engineer, or as a manager, you probably don't know if you can delete that. Maybe that data is important to someone. Maybe for company, this data is important and need to be kept somewhere in a cold storage, for example, if it's not required right now. And the idea of FinOps is basically to start that collaboration, start that conversation inside the company, to give the visibility of everything. So for example, I, as a FinOps, I did the review what we have. I take a look on all of the resources that we have in a company. And then I, for example, like, market one resource that potentially can be deleted and saying that, hey, can we delete the thing? It looks like obsolete for me because no one is using it for the last, 2 months or 3 months. Maybe we can delete it. I will give you an example, by the way, about obsolete, not data, but images. So a lot of customers, especially enterprise customers, they prefer to do migrations to the cloud in a lift and shift mode. So simply lifting and moving it to the cloud. The problem with that method is that they're creating a lot of huge snapshot, huge instance images, and then they're creating the actual instances from those images. And I saw cases when people were just forgetting to delete those images. And they have I saw a case with the Oracle database. The size of database is 2.5 terabytes, and they created the whole image of that, and they moved it to AWS at the moment. And they created the database from that image, but they never deleted that image. And that image cost them a lot of money. And actually, I saw that particular company, I cannot tell the name, of course, but that particular company, for the first months after the migration, they spent 40% of their money just for those instance images, backups, and some files that they copied. They just spent 40% of their monthly bill only to keep all of that. And all after that, they started to delete it.
I feel that for those purposes, Azure and Google have an edge over AWS for a simple reason of being able to create resource groups and projects must be helping a lot, right?
Yeah.
Because in AWS, everything is meshed. You cannot, at least I don't know how to easily distinguish team A from team B. Right? Everything there is no grouping of any kind. How can you say those are your images? Right? If everything is ungrouped.
In AWS, so GCP is much better in that case. On AWS side, there are two solutions that you can achieve. The Amazon way, Amazon is saying that hey guys, just create a small accounts per each such case, like create a lot of OUs, a lot of organization units, and then in those units create a lot of different accounts, and that's how you can split your projects, teams, and so on. And another way, tags, and probably that's the only way on AWS that people usually use. So tagging everything that you can. And by the way, if we're talking about tagging, right now I see that again people are doing tagging in a wrong way. So I will give you an example. People usually tend to set tags when they're creating infrastructure, for example, through Terraform. You're creating through Terraform your infrastructure, and then you have a tags. But usually people don't put the tag strategy or tag structure inside that Terraform project. They just have some tags, but those tags are not like in a like strict format. By the way, I want to recommend to everyone, check out the Terraform null label project. There is Terraform null label, very good provider that helps to build this like tagging strategy within the Terraform. Or at least they're trying to do that. It's not perfect, but they're trying to do that. But what I'm trying to say that for me, right now, as far as I see, we're missing tag policies. Not setting the tags. I don't want to set the tag to specific resource. I want to create a policy which will affect some resources. So when the new resource is created, I want that policy to set the tags. This is what I'm looking at the moment. Or to build in Terraform like a good tagging strategy and then apply it from the root level to everyone. So the tagging was split into accounts. This is how you can do that on AWS side.
So for the sake of FinOps, I guess that a significant number of companies use shared services like, let's say, image registry, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would have one image registry in a company. Is that a good practice, or should they, like, every team gets their own image registry, or their own stuff?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So I will give you an example on my dev environment, because we faced it a couple weeks ago with the issue is that we found that because our ECR was in one region and our feature environments was in a different region, we're paying a lot for just grabbing those images each time when we're spinning up the environment. And it was a mistake. So I'm just trying to show you that having a centralized registry has its own benefits, but at the same time has its own downsides. Is that if you have a lot of projects and they're located in different regions, you'll be pulling everything from one single place, so you'll be paying for the traffic. Maybe it's worth to split it to different projects. So for example, if you have a team of developers and they're developing their own product, for example, let them have their own Docker registry or Python registry or Node.js registry. Doesn't matter. So let them have their own. And then you can connect those, like, if it's like Node.js, you can do the upstream, downstream connections and so on. And dependencies, I mean. So depends on situation. This is what I'm trying to say.
Profisea Labs is at profisialabs.com, and it's spelled a little differently, so I'll spell it out. Profisea, like instead of, well, prophecy, and then labs, Labs.
Yeah, it's
C like water. C like
exactly.
Water.
That was the idea initially. So we are initially DevOps boutique company. We are Israeli DevOps boutique company. We exist for 7 years, and as I mentioned, we're AWS partner, GCP partner, Azure partner. But the initial idea why we called our company that way, because it's Profi, which is the professionals, and then C, which is water. So it's a lot of professionals. That was the idea of the naming of the company. And Labs, this is something that evolved from our DevOps company, because we DevOps engineers, we were struggling to do those FinOps projects. You did the migration or you did some kind of like Terraform project, and then customers start to ask you questions like, let's do something with the cost. I'm paying too much. And you as DevOps was required to go to his account, check account, then create a report, like usual customers asking to create some kind of spreadsheet or presentation explaining where they're wasting money, what they can do, and so on. And we were doing it manually. And at some point of time, we saw that it's enough. We live in 21st century. It's time to automate the things. And that's how we opened R&D a team inside our company. We called it Labs because it's like Labs of Profisea company. That's how it started. It started 3 years ago with the whole simple idea is to be able to connect to multiple cloud accounts and to be able to analyze them really quickly. It has like really cool things that I was missing as DevOps engineer. Our tool is generating architecture diagrams on the fly, networking and compute. And I don't know, I draw so many diagrams in Draw.io and Lucidchart and inside just a Visio, so that I'm super happy that we're generating diagrams automatically and I don't need to do it anymore. Yeah, so this is how we started, and this is how we evolving up until now. We have more than 200 customers around the globe who are using our platform in order to save money on the clouds.
And then the product that you have is Unisky?
Yeah.
Unisky?
Yeah, Unisky. The idea is really simple. As I mentioned to you, that we come from DevOps area, and then we started our own like spin-off R&D company, which is Labs. And the idea is that we will be providing more than one tool. The idea that we will be providing different DevOps and FinOps tools. And we started with the first one, which is FinOps SaaS platform called Unisky, unisky.com. And it can be accessed through the profisialabs.com or unisky.com, doesn't matter. It will lead to the same website. But in future, we will have more products.
So again, Profisea Labs is at profisialabs.com. Anton, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you too.
We hope this episode was helpful to you. If you want to discuss it or ask a question, please reach out to us. Our contact information and a link to the Slack workspace are at devopsparadox.com/contact. If you subscribe through Apple Podcast, be sure to leave us a review there. That helps other people discover this podcast. Go sign up right now at devopsparadox.com to receive an email whenever we drop the latest episode. Thank you for listening to DevOps Paradox.